What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be covering the brand new sensitivity options that came with the update earlier this week. This has been something that a ton of people have been bombarding me with questions about, so I wanted to make a video covering this. I'm going to share exactly how these new sensitivity options work, as well as what I'm personally using and what I would recommend using as well. So before this update, on console at least, we only had two sensitivity options. We had our horizontal sensitivity and our vertical sensitivity. This didn't really give us a whole lot of control with our aim because when we're aiming down sight, for instance, it's always going to be the same ratio no matter what your sensitivity value is. With that last big update though, we got two more options to our sensitivity values, and this is our aim down sight sensitivity as well as our high zoom sensitivity. Now the aim down sight sensitivity applies to all of the guns aside from the sniper rifles in this game, and essentially it allows you to control the ratio between your standard sensitivity values and your sensitivity while aiming down sight. So if you want to keep your sensitivity values exactly the same as they were before this update, just keep your aim down sight sensitivity at 1 and leave your horizontal and vertical sensitivity as they were before. Everything will be exactly as it was before the update. If, however, you want to play around with things a little bit, you can reduce the ADS sensitivity value, and this makes it so when you aim down sight, your sights will move back and forth a lot slower as you move the analog stick around. If you wanted to bump that up, and I wouldn't recommend bumping this up too much, you can bump it all the way up to 4x, and this will make it so when you aim down sight, you can move your sight around really quickly, although not very precisely for most people. Now, like I said, that applies to all of the guns aside from the sniper rifles. However, if you want to change your aim down sight sensitivity for these sniper rifles, this is where the high zoom sensitivity comes in. Now, just like with the ADS sensitivity, it behaves exactly the same. If you want to slow down your aim a little bit while you're aiming down sight with a sniper rifle, you can lower this value, or you can increase this value if you want to speed that up. And it's interesting to point out here because the description for this when you're looking in the menus says it applies to sniper scopes as well as 4x zoom optics. However, based on my testing, this doesn't actually apply to those 4x zoom optics. I tried with a recon sight, which when you're zooming in with a recon sight, this is a 4x zoom, and the high zoom sensitivity option has no effect on a zoomed in recon sight. And I also tried with the compact scope on the new Damon SMG, and that is also a 4x zoom. Once again, the high zoom sensitivity option had no effect on this whatsoever, but the ADS sensitivity value did. So just remember that when you're looking at the high zoom sensitivity setting, this only seems to apply to the sniper rifles when aiming down sight. So that's how these new options work. Now let's move on to what I'm using and what I personally would recommend. Of course, keep in mind the best sensitivity value is going to be different for everyone. So really, you do have to play around maybe in a custom game against some bots, and it might take a little bit of tweaking to find out the perfect sensitivity for you, but I will walk you through what I'm using and why I'm using this. So before this update, I used to play on either a 5 and 5 sensitivity or a 6 and 6 sensitivity. This one seemed to give me the good balance between being able to turn around when an enemy ends up behind me. I could still turn around decently fast and react to that situation without really sacrificing my precision at longer ranges when I'm aiming down sight. Now that we have that added control over our aim down sight sensitivity though, I actually bumped these values up to 8 for both horizontal as well as vertical, and then I reduce my ADS sensitivity down to 0.75. What happens with this is it allows me to turn around a little bit faster and react even faster to situations where somebody comes up behind me or beside me or I need to snap between targets, but I don't have to sacrifice that precision in those longer range situations where I'm going to be aiming down sight. For me, this seems to be the right setup, although there is still room for tweaking. It is still fairly early on, and I may end up making a couple adjustments to this in the future, but personally, I really like adjusting that ratio where I have my ADS sensitivity slightly below 1, whereas my other sensitivity values just a little bit higher than I used to have them. As for my high zoom sensitivity, I also like dropping this just a little bit down to about 0.75. I still have to play around with this a little bit with sniper rifles. I haven't done too much tuning. But once again, I really like having that added control once I'm aimed down sight, but also the ability to spin around quickly when hip firing, just in case somebody sneaks up behind me. Now, like I said, this is something to play around with. You might even prefer going a little bit higher than the standard aim down sight sensitivity, but for me at least, I don't really see too much logic behind that. I don't like that very much, and I wouldn't use it myself, but if it works for you, then all the power to you. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about was just the sensitivity range that I would recommend. Yes, there will be some people that swear by a 1 or 2 sensitivity, or people that swear by an insane or 14 sensitivity, but realistically speaking, I feel the best sensitivity range is somewhere between 3 and 10. Any lower than 3, and you're not going to be able to turn around and react to any sort of situations if there's enemies beside you or behind you. And any higher than 10, I feel like you don't really gain too much extra benefit as far as spinning around quickly. And really at that point, you're just losing precision even when hip firing. And I really feel like you get diminishing returns beyond about a 10 sensitivity, where you're not gaining much benefit when it comes to reacting quickly and spinning around fast at 14 sensitivity compared to somebody using a 10 sensitivity. Of course, this is just my recommendation. It does leave it quite open for you to play around and try and find your perfect sensitivity. I'd highly encourage you guys, especially with these new sensitivity settings, to hop into a custom game against bots and just start playing around with things. Maybe try doing what I did, where you turn your standard sensitivity values up by a couple points and then turn your ADS sensitivity value down a little bit. See if that works for you. If not, that's totally fine. Play around with a few other options and you just might find that you're a whole lot more accurate now than before. Now, of course, this wouldn't be a proper sensitivity video if I didn't mention KontrolFreeks. Now, KontrolFreeks are a product that I use every single day, and all it is it's a simple attachment to your thumbstick that effectively increases the length of your thumbstick and gives you a greater range of motion, and with a greater range of motion, this gives you more fine control over your accuracy. I've been using KontrolFreeks every single day that I play for about 9 or 10 years now, and I actually have a hard time going back and playing without them because they're just that good. Now, if you guys are interested in checking this out, you can use the code EXCLUSIVE to give you 10% off on KontrolFreeks, although up until Christmas, that code has actually been bumped up to 15%. These are excellent stocking stuffers. I will leave a link in the description down below if you want to check them out. Now, before we wrap this up, I'm actually quite interested in hearing, for anybody that did change their sensitivity values up once this update came, did you decrease or increase your ADS sensitivity value? Did you make any changes to your standard sensitivity? I'm just really curious to see what other people did with that. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah.